So hi guys, and welcome to this first EDB NatWest webinar that we've been running. And the intention here is to run a few of these sessions and really to sort of use this as a I suppose a knowledge deposit, if you like, for all things to do with EDB and Postgres. And obviously there will be a sequence of follow-up sessions and any Q&A that you feel that you may even want to ask after the event. But as you've heard, we're going to record the event as well. We can send it around to everyone afterwards. So my name is Matt Godolphin. I sort of run the commercial relationship between EDB and NatWest. And Rob Pogmore is, as you can see on the slide there, he's our principal sales engineer, and Rob is going to be doing the talking today. So I will pass over to Rob, and please enjoy the session.
Thank you, Matt, and good morning, everybody. So yeah, Rob Pogmore, Principal Sales Engineer. I've been at EDB for about 6 years now, formerly Oracle DBA/technical consultant for many years, but I work with Matt and other account executives working on strategic accounts across EMEA. So today's conversation and presentation really is about data transformation and why Postgres is playing a key role of that. We're talking about open source adoption, how it applies at NatWest and where others are doing it, and why it's important. And so we will move on. So this is quite an impactful statement. Postgres is seen by many in the industry as the most transformative open source technology since Linux. So if you think back to the early 2000s, when proprietary operating systems were ruling the roost, Linux came about, and now you compare the landscape of operating systems, and Linux is pretty much a de facto standard for most enterprise server builds. People have moved away from proprietary to an open source model because of various things that we'll discuss, mainly cost, flexibility, and great support around that open source operating system. And we see the same things happening with database now, and Postgres is taking a leading role in that. This is an interesting statement that was made by Gartner back in 2019, the analyst company, where they predicted that by 2022, more than 70% of all new applications built will be built on open source databases, and that over 50% of existing databases would be migrated or in the process of being migrated to an open source based database such as Postgres. And they also mentioned that over 80% of databases that are currently out there being used by customers were perfectly suitable for open source databases such as Postgres. So they really have predicted a sway and change in the direction of open source adoption, as well as people moving away and maybe constraining the use of proprietary databases such as Oracle DB2, for example, and Sybase. And this is backed up by what we're seeing in terms of license adoption in the industry right now. So you can see here a graph of commercially sourced licenses dropping and open source licenses picking up and replacing that drop. So again, we kind of refer to this as like the second wave of open source adoption. First was Linux and the operating system, and the next is the database level, and this is where Postgres is and other open source databases are really playing a key part in this change in direction. Now, one of the key reasons for this is there's a massive shift in how companies operate and how they use and share data. Companies need to be flexible, need to be doing more with the data they have. Data is the currency within many businesses. And obviously, making sure you can do what you need with that data is essential. So having a modernized or modern data strategy is really important. And many new companies pop up where they don't have legacy infrastructure, don't have the years of experience. They're coming up using new technology, new cloud native technology, and being disruptive and competitive. And obviously, the technologies that they're using aren't the old technologies that people have been relying on for many years. These are new open source based, cloud based, for example, technologies. So again, to stay relevant and competitive, companies have had to move and adopt to follow this kind of adjustment in data model. So digital transformation is the key here, and this is defined by open source. And again, replatforming of core database platforms is key to this. So again, when we think about the core platforms, historically it's been Oracle DB2, for example, maybe SQL Server for many systems. And there is a massive change on now to move this to open source and typically Postgres. And why, what has changed to cause this? And it's, 90% of IT leaders are now using open source in innovation, so building on open source. So this is following that Gartner predicted trend. And there's key reasons for this. The first is they want to build cloud native deployments. They want to have flexibility and build faster when they're building applications. Cloud native technology, open source, allows companies to build quicker. They can build quicker, test quicker, get to market quicker, and ultimately become more competitive and be a true force for their customers. Obviously, they want performance and scalability. This is a thing that every database system needs. With open source, you've got that. You've got the ability to scale, and again, cloud infrastructure and different types of services that you use on-prem enable this type of scalability. So as data is growing, you're doing more and more with your data, collecting more data. You need those sorts of features and functionality supported by the database you choose. And obviously, stability, it has to be reliable. You need the security in place, particularly in the banking and finance sector, of course, and control over your database. So having a choice or an alternative that has security at its heart and is stable is obviously very important. Typically, cost savings is what we see many customers moving to open source for. That is always a main driver. There's a lot of risk typically involved in moving or changing platform from one thing to another, whether it be moving of data, skills, and adopting new technologies. There's always a risk involved in that. So we have to make sure that that's catered for and mitigated, but ultimately help drive the business to save lots of money. That's one of the key drivers. Always on. I think standards these days require services to be always on. Having an acceptable amount of downtime is still permitted in many systems, but many more systems are looking to, or companies are looking to up the ante in the sense of providing more reliable services, particularly where they're customer facing or mission critical. Having 5 minutes of downtime or an outage if something goes wrong is just simply not acceptable anymore. So having always on support or a technology that can support that is certainly required. In fact, you can deploy anywhere. Again, this is another key thing. Why be restricted due to the technology you're using in terms of where you can deploy it, whether it be technical restriction or due to cost? So again, people want flexibility in where they deploy, whether it be in the cloud, whether it be on-prem, whether it be a hybrid mix, whether it be using a Kubernetes platform, for example, VMs, bare metal, whatever it is. They want that flexibility to deploy. So again, we cover any cloud, any hardware, and this is what makes Postgres great. You've got that flexibility to install the software pretty much wherever you want. And these are some of the customers we've worked with here at EDB who are doing this and following this trend themselves. So again, many different use cases between these customers, some using open source and using Postgres as a cost containment exercise for their legacy, others doing cloud native new application development, others migrating existing applications across to a Postgres-based platform. But as you can see here, we've got many companies in the business and banking and finance sector, as well as retail, manufacturing, telco, and so on. And the adoption of Postgres is accelerating through many of these companies taking it on board. So why is this modernization important, and why, what are the demands needed by business? And typically,
after you've left it, please press hash.
I'm not sure that was, but I'll continue. So there's many requirements here that are required for why businesses need to modernize their applications. So as we mentioned previously, better economics. They want a more cost-effective, more positive outcome to the business by using a database that does what they need, but obviously sort of saves them money at the same time. The fact that they can deploy a system on every cloud means that they're not pinned in or tied to one particular cloud vendor. So again, this increases the flexibility, increases the reliability. For example, if a cloud vendor goes offline, which does happen, they have the ability to move and operate in different cloud vendors or have systems running across different cloud vendors. So again, you've got that extra support there. They want a technology that is loved by the people who build applications on it. So, if you've got technology which is hard to use, expensive, maybe isn't feature rich, or seen that it's oriented towards developers, then again, it's difficult to persuade people to use that. So having a technology that's loved by developers is extremely important. Large talent pool, there has to be people around to support it. If you don't have the skills, then it becomes a problem and becomes difficult to build out and maintain that strategy. And the use case is important as well. So there's various different use cases why people are moving to open source, on how people would want to use open source. Maybe it's migration, maybe it's modernization, maybe it's new application development. Maybe the type of system that is looking to be built, is it transactional, is it data warehouse, is it event driven, data capture? So there's a variety of different use cases out there that enterprises are looking to build, and they need something flexible to support those. And finally, every data type, there's a variety of different data types used for different types of workflows and workloads. So again, having a database that can handle many different data types is very important to be flexible for the business. So this slide here talks about the fact that NatWest looking to move away typically from legacy to start using open source Postgres. You're not alone in this in this sense. Many companies have done this before, and these are the 5 key reasons why people are doing this, or businesses are doing this. So innovation is key, and this is certainly something that is a strong point of open source. The fact is that in theory, anybody can contribute to open source. It's an open project, which means that new technology can be implemented pretty quickly and put into new versions. There's a new major build of Postgres annually. So again, if there's key technologies that are going in, there's a very fast turnaround time in the sense of having new features adopted, which is sometimes uncommon for legacy commercial database. Second thing is vendor lock-in. People are moving to open source typically to avoid the situation of being tied to one vendor or one provider for their software. As we mentioned previously, the agility, the freedom of being able to pick and choose where you go, how you want to deploy. You don't want to be constrained or restricted because you're using a particular type of software or a particular vendor who may make deploying on one platform more expensive than another, or may make it technically unsupported because you want to use a platform or a technology as opposed to what they're tied to. So again, you want that freedom and to avoid being locked in by a vendor. Replatforming to cloud and hybrid. Obviously, this is a thing that is strong with Postgres. The fact that you can move workloads to a variety of different technologies, whether it be cloud, Kubernetes, a combination of on-prem and cloud, through hybrid. You have the same experience pretty much with the technology every platform you go to. So again, it makes it easy to move workloads and integrate workloads and deploy wherever you want to go, really. So this helps enable ultimately a smoother path for transformation of your data and services moving to open source, ultimately leading to significant cost savings for the business. So you're benefiting from being more agile, but being more innovative, supporting technology that's constantly being developed and upgraded and future-proof to a degree. You have that freedom of flexibility because you're not locked into a vendor or a platform, and you're saving money at the same time. So, we say Postgres is the economic game changer. Why is this? Well, databases are the largest software spend in IT. Budgets need to be freed up because Postgres can help you decouple the cost that you're spending with legacy systems and move to more affordable, more flexible technologies. So typically we see customers saving around 80% moving from Oracle to Postgres, which is significant. And even with high Oracle discounts that you may see, we're still very cost effective against those. So again, there's a real, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a real significant cost saving bonus and to move away from Oracle to go to Postgres. Ultimately, leading to greater agility for the business and flexibility, as we discussed before. And this means that you can focus on building applications and building technologies rather than worrying about where and how you deploy and being constrained and restricted by the cost, as we mentioned earlier. As we said, any cloud, any OS, pretty much everywhere you deploy. So again, you've got that flexibility. If you want to put things in public cloud, Postgres can pretty much go anywhere in that sense. So you've got the freedom of cloud vendor or multiple cloud vendors, if you wish, to stand up your Postgres. Same with operating systems. Windows is supported. Linux is typically the recommended OS from EDB, but you've got a choice of where you can deploy, and different platforms as well. Whether or not you want to maintain using virtual machines, go to a Kubernetes-based deployment, or use hybrid technologies and DBAS through products like Nutanix. You can run Postgres pretty much anywhere. And the same applies with data types. When you think about the workloads that people are doing, Postgres is what's called object relational database. So you can pretty much have a variety of different data types and data workloads catered for, because Postgres is extensible. And this is one of the reasons why developers love it, because they can customize and do a variety of different things with one technology. So you've got your standard relational data. You've got support for spatial data, key value store, or key value pair, and document store, and XML. So again, there's a real mix of workloads that Postgres can support without having to go maybe to a niche database to do a particular type of workload. Postgres is great for supporting many different things. And the other thing about why Postgres is popular is the fact that it is a true open source database. And when we say open source, there are other open source databases that are well known, but they are often dominated by one particular company and controlled in the sense of their development by one particular company. So with Postgres, no one company controls Postgres. EDB, for example, are the largest contributor to Postgres, but we don't dictate how Postgres gets developed as a technology. As you can see on this slide, there's many enterprises that add code and commits to Postgres and contribute to the development of it. But there's over 700 contributors worldwide, over 144 companies actually building code for Postgres. So again, it really is a diverse mix of companies who help drive the technology forward to make it into the product it is today. And we go back to the comment about why you need a technology that's also loved by people who use it. So again, this information here backs up the fact that Postgres is loved by the people who use it. So developers love, they're asking for Postgres. They want to use it as the technology. We're seeing it being used in microservices and container-based environments. And the Cloud Native Foundation also, rate it as the third most popular type of technology being used. These statistics were taken in 2022. So not only is it enjoyed by people, again, the flexibility makes it great to use by the people building. Not only they want to use it, but they don't fear using it. It's something that they can find easy to work with because they can pretty much deploy it anywhere. It's the same experience, regardless of if it's on-prem in the cloud or in containers, for example. So if we summarize some of the use cases that we see, again, this is typically what we see at EDB. There's four main use cases here. Firstly is new developments, people building new applications, whether they be custom solutions, microservices, or off-the-shelf applications. We're often working with vendors who are migrating legacy applications that they've had running on Oracle for decades, and now they're supporting open source. So this is something we're seeing increased adoption of. Migration is obviously a strong point EDB has lots of experience in, and this is where we see probably about a third of our business at EDB, where businesses are looking to move off of legacy database. We can help them, particularly in Oracle. We're very strong in Oracle migrations, and the next topic we discuss in the next session will be focused on Oracle migration and how we do it. But we also work with partners who are expert in migrating DB2 and other databases onto Postgres. So moving away from those legacy systems onto open source is certainly something we can help. And it's not just a question of lift and shift. There's also the modernization play. So, for example, you may have a system that parts of it has to stay on Oracle because of a particular requirement, but they may want to modernize or change elements to make use of more flexible open source or cloud native technology. So again, modernization of applications is also very popular with some of our customers. And we mentioned about, where is Postgres used? Postgres can be used across the board for various applications. So one end, we go to the sort of data mart, smaller scale data warehouse type of systems, often popularly used in those arenas. It is a transactional database by default, Postgres. OLTP is its strong point, but it can also be used for Internet of Things and edge use cases as well. So there's a real broad mix of where you can deploy Postgres and get the best out of it. And in fact, like we mentioned, it's open source, it's standards based. It doesn't go down a proprietary route of using a particular coding standard. It's open and standards based, which is another reason why developers like it, because they can follow and understand very easily, and everything's well documented and great to work with. And finally, cloud transformation. Part of the cloud native moving to cloud. In fact, we've already mentioned, in fact, you can go to any cloud, various platforms, whether it be database as a service, infrastructure as a service, or Kubernetes. You've got many different options to choose from there. And also, if you want to run self-managed in the cloud, maybe not reliant on a fully managed service, but you want to stand up a database on an EC2 instance, for example, on AWS, you can do that with Postgres, of course. But also, if you want fully managed and somebody supporting your workloads, there are various services in the cloud for doing that. So why focus on EDB for Postgres? Well, as EDB, we mentioned before, we're the largest contributor to the open source project. We support and supply enterprise grade solutions to Postgres. So what this means is we engineer functions and features, functionality typically, to make Postgres a more enterprise grade version. So we fully support the community version, PostgreSQL, and we contribute many features to the community, as we saw on the previous slide. But there are some instances where, again, one example is Oracle compatibility, where the community is not interested in having that technology in its product. So therefore, we have to have that in proprietary versions to make sure that it supports our customers' requirements. Another example is transparent data encryption. This has been added by EDB for one of our customers in MasterCard. They requested that they had to have this technology for them to adopt Postgres at a wide scale for their transaction handling system. So, we've engineered this into Postgres as part of our deployment supports, and they're taking advantage of that. And as a result, all of our customers are now able to use TDE as part of the standard product. We also offer extreme high availability, as we mentioned earlier, the always-on nature of systems. So if customers are looking for 5 nines uptime, no downtime, and upgrading the system while it's being used, for example, without having to bring it offline, we can support that with some of our technology. Oracle compatibility, obviously, this is all part of the migrating away from Oracle. We support that in our products. But I'd say probably one of the most common reasons companies working with EDB is because of our support, because we contribute lots, we write lots of code, we've got many key contributors and engineers working at EDB. That backs up our support system, which is very highly rated by our customers. It's 24/7 global. We've got, I think, nearly 20 countries where we have support people working. So it truly is a follow the sun support model. Better performance. Again, people look at the enterprise variant or enterprise company to help them with their performance. Maybe it'd be a niche system where there's a particular requirement and they help with architecting, tailoring parameters, for example, tuning, setting up and optimizing workloads. That's certainly something EDB can help you with in the sense of moving away from Oracle or building new applications on Postgres. So again, if you're looking to build on the cloud or build on-prem and you've got particular requirements, we can certainly help with architectures and optimization. Reduce cost, obviously this comes in, it's multifaceted. You've got the license cost reduction, you've also got the operational costs that will be involved. Having something that's more efficient, easy to manage, ultimately will save the business a lot more money. We can help with reducing costs for sure. Scalability as well. If you need to build out environments that require greater numbers of users or more workload and are future-proofed, maybe you've got a certain amount of data for year 1, but by year 5, that figure is going to be massively changed. We can obviously build you systems to help support you how you handle and deploy. And obviously, we're not just talking about system or a single system per se, but how you use Postgres across the business at scale. Not just for a couple of applications, but as a key strategic tool. How can we support customers with that adoption and moving to Postgres? And finally, we mentioned fully managed and self-managed Postgres. So again, if you want fully managed, we have cloud offerings that can fully manage your Postgres workloads. And also, if you want to self-manage, we can give you support on those. So just to finish off, we'll go through a couple of use cases where Postgres is being used by some of our customer base. And typically there's a theme that goes on with many of these use cases. And again, these are all companies in business and finance. Typically it boils down to removing dependency from legacy, typically Oracle database. So they're migrating applications away, or they're looking to modernize internally, moving to new technologies in going to open source, because they want to take advantage of things like cloud, where open source is more flexible, more cost effective. So we've got some examples here where they've migrated an application to Oracle, saving lots of money. A good example here of a clearing bank, again, used in mission critical systems. The previous example was a data mart, OLAP, data warehouse system. This one is a transactional OLTP. So again, you've got a good example here of where Postgres can be used for different types of workload. If we move on to the next one, this is a bank in Southeast Asia that we help with. And this is an interesting one because this was a core banking system, Infosys product called Finacle, that was being used by the bank traditionally on Oracle. I think they had a 3,000 core deployment of this application across the bank and all of its subsidiaries. That they migrated it. We worked with Infosys to get Finacle working with EDB Postgres, which had the Oracle compatibility in. So this was allowing the company to then migrate their application off of Oracle, or modules of it at least off of Oracle, to begin onto a Postgres-based platform. And at the same time, they were moving the hardware and architecture to a container-based architecture. So not only are they migrating from legacy, they're also modernizing the infrastructure that they're using to make it more future-proof, more flexible going forward. So, obviously as a result, they saved lots of money at the same time. And the final one here is a stock exchange group. This is a London-based one. I think you can probably work out who it is. But again, this company is doing a variety of different deployments. We're working with their software teams internally who are building applications, and again, they're using Postgres now to develop many of their new applications and using EDB versions because of the extra enterprise features that we have, as well as migrating legacy applications they've got within the business to Postgres as well. So again, a real mix of use cases, but ultimately, they're all achieving the same thing. Companies are becoming more flexible, they're saving money, they're losing their resilience on, or their requirement, I should say, on needing a legacy database, and being kind of future-proof by having mission critical systems supported on open source. So this wraps up the presentation for today. I'm open to any questions that you may have. So thank you.
Yes, thanks for that, Rob. So we are sort of slightly over time. So if people want to follow up with either an email or a follow-up question, then please feel free to do so. If anyone's got anything burning now that you want to ask a question, you can either type it in the Zoom chat or come off mute and ask the question. But as I said, we can do follow-ups after this if that's going to be easy for you.
Yeah, and just for the NatWest staff, if they want to send me an email with any questions, thoughts, comments, please just come to me direct. And Rob, I really appreciate it. It was really useful, so thank you. I need to drop for another call because I'm the host, but thank you very much all. I appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, thanks everyone.